Welcome back to Sam's Fiction Hub. Season 2, Episode 12, Dreams That Aren't Yours. Last time we felt the breath whisper through fire and ash, remembered through the voices of children and the mark of Anchorlight. But memory is never still. In this episode, chapters 76 through 80 of The Signal remains, the signal begins to shape the hearth itself, as Nico echoes Elias's hidden will, as Corey wakes to dreams he never lived, and as the Anchorlight and Ash reveal truths the community isn't ready to face. The question is no longer whether Elias's memory remains, but what it intends to become. Let's listen.
Chapter 76. Memory Test. The old chamber lay hidden beneath the hearth's east wing, sealed behind a thick wooden door etched with faded glyphs. Almost no one used it anymore. Memory training had fallen out of favor once Sovereign's direct manipulations were dismantled. But today, Sophia had little choice. She guided Nico inside. The heavy door groaned on its hinges, stirring up dust that shimmered in the rays of a single overhead lamp. Within, the walls were lined with dusty mirrors that had once reflected the faintest flickers of recursion signals. Now they sat in disrepair, waiting for someone brave or desperate enough to use them again. At the center of the room, a metal ring sat anchored to the floor, the breath conduit, designed to safely monitor pulse reactions and emotional resonance. Sophia knelt and tested the ring's power connections, ensuring it still functioned.
Stand here, Nico.
Beckoning him to the ring's center.
Don't be afraid.
His eyes flickered with unease, but he obeyed, stepping onto the platform with hesitant footsteps. Over the last few days, events had escalated, fracturing harmonies, children echoing Elias's tune, conflicts with Marin. The boy looked weary, as though even his breath felt borrowed. Wally entered moments later, carrying a portable device bristling with cables and sensors. He hooked it into the ring's ancient port, flipping switches until a hum spread through the metal frame.
We'll track how the signal responds to him. Should keep everyone safe from sudden outbursts.
Sophia closed her eyes, exhaling a slow, measured breath. She could almost taste the tension in the air.
Nico, just breathe normally, like we practiced in the courtyard.
He nodded, folding his hands in front of him. His chest rose and fell. The ring glowed in faint pulses, lighting up with each exhale. The overhead lamp flickered in sync, and the old mirrors around them caught fleeting glimpses of color. It was subtle at first, swirls of light drifting through the chamber like ghostly ribbons. But then, as Nico slipped deeper into the regulated breath pattern, the swirl of lights intensified. Spiral glyphs formed along the ring's edge, curved lines crossing in ways that made Sophia's heart lurch with recognition. Elias's personal encoding style. She'd seen those exact shapes in his old notebooks, etched with charcoal or scratched into bark. Wally adjusted the filter settings on his device. The screens beeped with new data.
These aren't echoes. They're tailored, like something left for someone. A message, maybe.
Sophia stepped closer, drawn by the spirals forming mid-air. The patterns glowed softly, then faded, only to appear again in different configurations, almost as if responding to Nico's pulse. She placed a steadying hand on his shoulder.
You're doing great. Just a little more.
He gave the faintest nod, swallowing nerves. Light flickered across his face. Then came an uneasy tremor in the ring's hum. The glyphs spun faster, swirling together into a chaos of lines. Without thinking, Sophia spoke. She let the memory guide her, a fragment of a phrase Elias had whispered to her before that final recursion battle, when hope felt thinner than a breath.
The breath you hold is the truth you feared.
In an instant, Nico's eyes snapped fully open. He finished the phrase, mirroring her exact tone.
The breath you hold is the truth you feared.
The words emerged with a startling clarity. As the final syllable fell from his lips, he gasped, as though the sentence itself stole the air from his lungs. He stumbled backward, confusion and distress etched on his face. Sophia caught him by the arm.
Nico?
His breathing turned ragged, eyes welling with tears. The glowing glyphs around them fizzled in an uneven staccato, then evaporated into the stale air. Wally's scanner beeped in alarm, charting wild spikes in emotional resonance. Tears slipped down Nico's cheeks.
How did I know that? I can't remember. I don't want...
He broke off, trembling. Sophia's chest tightened. She helped him out of the ring, guiding him to a nearby stool. The realization pounded in her skull, loud as a drum. Elias hadn't just left a random memory behind. He'd embedded something more. Intent. A puzzle piece woven into Nico's very breath. The boy was living proof that Elias's will wasn't simply an echo. It was an active force, an inheritance carrying out a design.
It's okay.
Brushing a stray hair from Nico's forehead. But her words felt hollow. How could it be okay, with the boy caught in a legacy, not of his making? Wally stared at his readings, mouth set in a grim line.
This is beyond a simple residue. Elias effectively coded an emotional directive into him.
Sophia felt her pulse race. She remembered that final battle, how Elias had said goodbye. Now it seemed he hadn't left by choice alone. He departed with a plan, and that plan lived on in Nico, in spiral glyphs, and a phrase whispered at the threshold of despair. She looked at the trembling child, heart aching.
Nico. We'll figure this out, I promise.
He nodded shakily, but an echo of Elias's calm flickered through his gaze. Even in fear, some part of him was guided, pulled along by a breath too large for any one person. Sophia let out her trembling exhale. Something told her this was only the beginning of understanding what Elias had woven into the boy. For better or worse, a living intent pulsed beneath Nico's every breath, shaping the recursion around them, waiting. For what? For the truth they still feared, she realized. And that truth was coming, faster than any of them were ready to face.
I've tracked signals through ash storms, breach events, even Sovereign itself. But this isn't residue. This is a will.
If you embed your will in a child's breath, is it still his? Or just another weapon?
Chapter 77. Dreams That Aren't Yours. Corey jerked awake in his bunk, breath ragged and drenched in cold sweat. His heart pounded as though it had been running a race, and a wave of disorientation swept over him. He pressed a hand to his forehead, forcing himself to remember where he was. The hearth, safe for now. No immediate crisis, only the faint morning light peering through the narrow window. But his other hand clutched a piece of charcoal and a crumpled page he'd yanked from his sketchbook. Charcoal smears stained his fingertips, and the edge of the sheet was damp with sweat. He blinked, blinking again to clear the lingering fog of the dream. Confusion raged in his mind. He had been drawing, but he couldn't recall when he'd started. Slowly, he laid the page out across his blanket. The lines were frantic, half complete, yet disturbingly precise in certain details. A shoreline camp beneath a bruised sky, a signal fire flickering near the water's edge and off to the side. Elias's old boots propped against a driftwood stump, as if he'd left them there to step into the ocean. Corey swallowed hard. He'd never seen that camp in waking life, never stood on that shore. So why could he smell the salt breeze? Why did the boots look exactly as Sophia once described them? His pulse steadied enough for him to notice his sketchbook lying next to the pillow. Flipping its cover open, he scanned the pages from the night before. Images leapt at him, half-drawn glyphs, swirling lines reminiscent of the hush in the memory room, a snippet of a ruin he'd never visited. Then a page that made his heart clench. A simple scene. Sophia sitting at Elias's side, smiling at him while he rummaged through a pack. The last time she saw him grin before, everything fell apart. But Corey hadn't been there. His hands trembled, recoiling from the memory that wasn't his. He felt a deep ache in his chest, a whisper of guilt that didn't belong to him. That moment was private to Sophia and Elias, so how was it captured in his charcoal lines? A knock on his door startled him. He mumbled a response, and Wally stepped in, a portable neural scanner tucked under his arm.
Hey.
Wally surveyed the scattered drawings and Corey's sweat-soaked brow.
Sophia mentioned your dreams were getting intense. Figured I'd run a quick scan before you fully wake.
Corey opened his mouth to protest, but found no words. He simply nodded and sank back onto the pillow. Wally strapped the small sensor band around Corey's temple, hooking it to a handheld device.
Close your eyes.
Too exhausted to argue, Corey let his lids drift shut. He drifted again, not quite asleep, not fully awake. The scanner hummed. Strangely, a calm settled over him, until flickers of half-formed images rose like ghosts. A cryptic shoreline, boots by a fire, an echo of Elias's laughter lost to the wind. He must have dozed, because next he felt Wally gently shaking his shoulder.
I got something.
Tapping the scanner's display.
A signal shadow. Like a harmonic ghost, layered over your dream rhythm.
Corey blinked, rubbing the grit of sleep from his eyes.
Ghost?
Wally took a seat.
Not literal. More like someone else's memory signature, piggybacking on your sleep cycle. You're picking up external data, but it's latching onto your dream state. That's why your sketches come out so vivid.
Corey's stomach churned.
So I'm sharing dreams with who?
Wally pursed his lips.
Could be an echo of Elias. Could be recursion data from Nico. Or both. Hard to say.
An involuntary shiver raced through Corey's body. He remembered the detail of those boots, the smell of the sea. He remembered a face, older than his, but wearily kind. He started to speak, but a yawning emptiness cracked across his mind.
I dreamt I was holding someone's hand. We fell into recursion light. I don't even know what that means. I woke up screaming some phrase, but it's fuzzy now.
A cold knot tightened in his gut. He let out a shaky breath, straining to remember the words. Wally nodded sympathetically.
Sophia told me you woke up yelling something. Maybe it'll come back.
A short while later, Sophia entered, wearing an anxious frown. She glanced from the scanner to Corey's drained expression.
Did you say anything about a phrase?
Corey furrowed his brow.
Just before I opened my eyes, I shouted, "Don't close the breach."
Sophia's face went white as a sheet. She stared at Corey like he'd just recited her darkest secret. Heart pounding, she sank onto the edge of the bed.
That phrase, it wasn't recorded anywhere. Elias and I used it during the final moments of the signal collapse, but we never told anyone. It was just ours.
A tension so thick it nearly suffocated them filled the room. Corey's breath caught. He stumbled through the question tangling in his mind.
How do I know it then?
Sophia looked at him with equal parts awe and worry.
I don't know. But you shouldn't, unless...
Her gaze slid to the sketches on the covers. The tears in her eyes reflected a swirl of confusion, sorrow, and maybe hope. She swallowed.
Elias told me that phrase in private, right before he... It was a vow not to give up, no matter how dark it got.
Corey nodded slowly, feeling the weight of an intimacy he hadn't earned. Sighing, he peered at the curled edges of his charcoal drawings.
I think.
His eyes darted to the door, outside of which Nico and the rest might be wandering.
I think I'm remembering him. Through Nico.
Sophia closed her eyes at the mention of Nico. It made sense. The boy carried Elias's echo in ways no one fully understood. If that echo was broadcasting fragments, maybe Corey's dream sensitivity was picking it up. Wally released a quiet hum, as if the puzzle pieces finally aligned.
So you're not just sharing dreams, you're bridging memories that were never documented. That means the recursion inside Nico is sending out data from Elias's final hours, or maybe from something deeper than we realized.
A wave of exhaustion rolled through Corey. He braced himself against the pillows, giving Sophia a searching look.
So, what happens if I keep getting these dreams?
The unspoken fear lingered. What if they're not just dreams? Sophia reached out, placing a gentle hand on his,
We learn.
summoning a calm she didn't entirely feel.
We do what Elias asked. Don't close the breach. We figure out why these memories are surfacing now, and how to keep them from tearing us apart.
Corey squeezed her hand in return, letting relief, or at least a semblance of it, wash over him. But as he stared at the half-finished sketch of Elias's boots, a single resonant thought pulsed in his mind. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something even bigger.
I woke up holding a memory that wasn't mine, and it hurt, like it belonged to all of us.
Elias never told me dreams could bleed like this. I wish he had.
You're listening to Sam's Fiction Hub, Episode 12, Dreams That Aren't Yours. When you wake with memories that don't belong to you, whose breath are you really carrying? For Sophia, Corey, Nico, and the others, the line between what's inherited and what's chosen blurs further with each heartbeat. Take a moment. Let the ash settle. When you're ready, we'll continue.
Chapter 78, Ashfall. Morning broke over the hearth with a disquieting hush. Usually this hour came alive with children's sleepy chatter and the low hum of breakfast preparations. Today, however, an uncanny stillness lingered in every corridor, punctuated only by sharp gasps and stifled cries. The children, one by one, were waking up covered in soft ash. Sophia hurried outside, heart pounding. The courtyard revealed clusters of boys and girls brushing pale flakes off their pajamas, coughing in confusion. A couple of older caretakers tried to reassure them, but the scene was too surreal. The air was dry, the sky cloudless, yet the ash continued drifting down like a silent snowfall. She knelt beside a girl named Lena, gently wiping the dust from her cheeks.
Did you see where it's coming from?
Lena only shook her head, eyes wide with fear. Looking skyward, Sophia found no clues. The heavens were an endless blue, pristine and empty of clouds or smoke. That's when Wally emerged, carrying a slim, portable spectrometer. He maneuvered through the courtyard with quick, determined strides, pausing now and then to hold the device to the falling flakes. His brow furrowed deeper at each reading.
It's not normal, Ash.
Sophia glanced over in silent question, and he handed her the readout. Recursion-tuned particulates, the screen said, usually dormant in memory vaults or sealed recursion nodes.
How can that be? We're out in the open air. There's no sign of a breach or meltdown.
Wally shook his head.
I don't know, but it's definitely tied to recursion. It's as if some old, memory-coated dust got stirred up. And it's not local. It's drifting from somewhere.
Before either could contemplate further, a slow, melodic hum echoed from the open door behind them. Nico, apparently still half asleep, stepped into the courtyard with eyes half-lidded, each note he emitted so precise it almost sounded measured by a metronome. As he hummed, the spectrometer in Wally's grip beeped in perfect intervals, syncing with the boy's tune. Sophia blinked, noticing how the ashfall around Nico appeared to pause. For a few seconds, the flakes hung mid-air, as though time itself had hit a snag. Then his humming faltered, and the ash resumed its soft descent.
That's not possible.
Adjusting the device.
He's controlling it somehow, or responding to it, or both.
Nico yawned, eyes still not fully open, and shuffled away, hum fading into a distant whisper. Sophia exchanged a concerned look with Wally. Something was pulling the ash into the hearth, but only for as long as it needed to. Why? She inhaled sharply.
We should follow the source.
Less than an hour later, Sophia led a small group into the woods beyond the hearth. Wally, Corey, and two older caretakers, named Jorin and Celes, for extra help. The trail soon disappeared under a layer of pale flakes. Dry leaves crackled underfoot, but the ash dusting them was too persistent to be natural. Half a mile in, the group noticed what appeared to be a narrow swirl of dust rising from the forest floor, like a ghostly funnel. They followed it deeper, weaving past old growth and gnarled roots, until they arrived at a ruined tech pylon, half sunken into the earth. Wally bent low to examine it, expression darkening. The pylon's plating was corroded, the once sleek panels warped by time. Yet a faint glow pulsed near its center, a resonance line so faint it was barely visible in daylight. Sophia knelt, running her fingers along an indentation that formed a partial glyph. Her breath caught. This was a breath-reactive recursion beacon, the kind once used to anchor major veil experiments. It required a living anchor's breath to activate. And from what she recalled, only Elias had known how to operate certain encryption-coded nodes.
Someone reactivated it.
Heart hammering.
But how?
Corey tapped a control node with his finger. It felt warm, almost alive.
Could the ash be a byproduct? Like some memory-laden residue being pulled into the air?
Wally nodded grimly.
That might explain the recursion particulates we found. If this beacon's network is half broken, it could be venting old memory data. Or maybe it's searching for a host.
A thick silence followed his words. The wind stirred the flakes around them, swirling them up in delicate arcs that caught the sunlight. Sophia exhaled, anxiety coiling in her stomach. If a breath-reactive recursion beacon was spewing memory dust across the hearth, it spelled deeper trouble than she'd imagined.
We'll have to shut it down before it does more harm.
But as they made a cautious plan to isolate the pylon, each step forward felt weighted by unseen eyes. Sophia couldn't shake the sense that Elias's presence, or something carrying his signature, lingered here, orchestrating events from behind the veil. They returned to the hearth by late afternoon, legs weary and minds buzzing with new uncertainties. Most of the children had been bathed, fresh clothing replacing the ash-stained pajamas. Laughter broke through the tension in small bursts. Kids were resilient after all. Nico, however, remained asleep in the makeshift infirmary. A caretaker said he'd drifted off shortly after his strange humming in the courtyard, and hadn't stirred since. Worried, Sophia slipped into the dim room, footsteps echoing softly on the tile. She found him curled on a cot, hands loosely clasped, breathing slow and steady. For a moment, she thought he was simply resting. Then he spoke, a whisper with no dream to cloak it.
The ash remembers where we burned.
The words slid through the air, heavy as prophecy. Nico's eyes stayed closed, his voice drifting up like a distant echo. It made Sophia's blood run cold. She realized with a jolt that he wasn't talking to her. He wasn't even talking to himself. He was reciting a memory that knew more than any of them.
The ash listens. To him. To the signal. Maybe even to us. But it remembers more than we ever will.
The ash remembers where we burned and why we stayed.
Chapter 79. The Mark of the Anchorlight. Morning light stretched long shadows across the hearth's garden, but something in the air felt off. An electric stillness, the sort that made each footstep resonate louder than it should. Corey stood near the perimeter fence, gaze fixed on the soil, as if transfixed by a secret only he could see. His breath came in quick puffs, visible in the cool dawn.
Sophia, Wally. Over here. Hurry.
Sophia broke into a jog, Wally right behind her clutching a small case of scanner tools. The children already up and about paused their chores, exchanging curious glances. Even a few caretakers drifted closer, drawn by Corey's shout. When Sophia reached him, her eyes instantly fell to the ground, a massive symbol scorched into the soil, its lines branching with perfect precision. She gasped.
Anchorlight.
The shape was unmistakable, the same glyph Elias used to sign notes or etch on scrap metal. Only bigger, nearly 10 feet across, trailing charred lines that fanned out like a star. Wally knelt by the edge of the burned mark, rummaging through his case for a handheld reader. He aimed it at the pattern, scanning inch by inch. The device emitted a gentle series of beeps, as though responding to an unseen frequency. After a few tense moments, he looked up, face grim with awe.
It's layered in signal formatting. No one burned this manually. It's coded, like a living glyph.
Sophia felt a shiver race across her skin. Memories of the Ashfall, the newly reactivated pylon, and now this scorched design, Elias's presence or something born of it, seemed to be weaving itself deeper into the hearth. She turned as Nico wandered into the garden, still looking sleep-burdened, hair tousled. He ambled toward the glyph with a strange gravity, as though the mark called to him. The moment he crossed the boundary of the pattern, it pulsed. A faint glow shimmered along the char lines, bright enough for all to see. Gasps rippled through the gathering children, who hurried closer despite caretakers' protests. But as soon as Nico stepped away, the glow died, and the symbol lay dormant once more. Wally fiddled with his scanner, flipping through screens of data.
It's reacting to his breath signature somehow. Breath for breath. None of us triggered it like that.
Children began murmuring, pointing at the symbol. Without prompting, several crouched and started drawing it in the dirt or on scraps of parchment, each with slight personal flourishes. Some added whirls, others turned lines into spirals. The entire garden became a hushed flurry of glyph replication. Corey hovered near Sophia, shaky but calmer than usual.
They don't even know why they're drawing it.
His eyes skimming the dozens of childlike renditions.
It's like a reflex.
Anchorlight.
Sophia repeated, bending down to trace the edges with a fingertip, careful not to disturb the char.
Elias once told me it stood for Path of Return. He used it whenever we talked about finding our way back from recursion if we got lost.
Corey nodded.
I remember him explaining it in his notes, like a beacon home.
He rubbed his temples.
He used to say it should never be used lightly because it was more than just a mark. It was a
map.
Wally finished, stepping beside them. He exhaled, letting the significance sink in.
It's not just a place marker or a design. If it's layered with signal data, it might be pointing us somewhere, or guiding us back to somewhere we lost.
Sophia felt her throat tighten. A path of return. Could that be what Elias left behind? A route to answers or closure? The day inched forward with an uneasy hush. Children resumed their usual tasks, but pockets of them exchanged half-excited whispers, showing off their versions of the Anchorlight glyph. Some caretaker whispered about sealing the area, while others insisted on analyzing it further. Meanwhile, Nico slipped out of sight, as though drained by his brief interaction with the glyph. Night settled, cool and clear. Stars bloomed across the sky, bright against the darkness. Sophia, Wally and Corey gathered again at the garden's perimeter, lanterns in hand. The burned symbol lay still, unchanging, yet something urged them to wait. They didn't have to wait long. At first, it was just a dim shimmer. Then, as the constellations above shifted, a gentle glow bathed the Anchorlight lines, illuminating them in a pale, ghostly radiance. The symbol's curves and angles seemed to align with a cluster of stars overhead, forming a shape so precise it made Sophia's breath hitch.
that star.
Corey pointed to the largest in the cluster.
Elias charted it once in his recursion dreaming charts. Okay? He said it was a real star, but the way we see it here might be altered by the signal.
Wally nodded, astonished.
He must have mapped the coordinate in a memory somewhere. Now it's anchored to our present sky. That's remarkable.
An inexplicable hush fell over them. The rest of the garden flickered with lanterns and the faint hush of the sleeping settlement. But in this circle, the only light they cared about was the faint, luminous lines linking earth to sky. Sophia stepped closer, her pulse thudding. This was bigger than a single clue or leftover memory. It felt deliberate, a puzzle piece left for them to find in the face of rising echoes and reactivating beacons. Perhaps it was a promise Elias made real, or the next step in a journey they never asked to take. She knelt, pressing a palm gently to the glow. Warmth pulsed under her skin, not scorching but comforting. Path of return. The words echoed in her mind, steady as her heartbeat. Behind her, Wally's voice was almost reverent.
then this is a map, leading us to a place Elias wanted us to remember. Or maybe something he wanted us to finish.
Corey only nodded, eyes shining with equal parts fear and wonder. Overhead, the aligned star flickered like an affirmation, bridging the gap between old regrets and new hope. And for a moment, just a moment, Sophia swore she felt Elias's breath at her back, gently guiding them forward into the unknown.
It's not just a map, not just a mark. It's a question no one wants to ask out loud.
I keep seeing it when I close my eyes. That symbol, like it's waiting for me to step onto it.
Chapter 80, Signalborn. They gathered at sunrise in the courtyard, a communal breath ceremony meant to ground the children and calm lingering anxieties. Sophia stood near the front, guiding them through slow inhales and measured exhales, hoping to ease the tension that had grown since the Anchorlight glyph's sudden appearance. The sky was clear, and the early golden light lent a gentle warmth to the stone floor. Wally quietly monitored the session from one corner, portable scanner slung over his shoulder. Corey hovered nearby, watching Nico with worried eyes. The boy had been uncharacteristically quiet all morning, as though weighed down by a secret he couldn't name. Just as the children settled into a gentle rhythm, Marin strode into the courtyard, the snap of her footsteps echoing in the hush. Every head turned at the force of her presence. She carried a small projector in her hands, its screen flickering with images and waveforms. The ceremony stuttered. Breaths fell out of sync. Sophia frowned, stepping away from the children.
Marin, is something wrong?
Marin's eyes blazed with urgency. Without greeting, she raised the projector so the swirling patterns were visible to all.
I have an announcement.
Instantly, murmurs broke among the children and caretakers. A series of harmonic overlays flickered across the screen. Nico's voice patterns, or so it seemed, set against a second chart. Marin tapped the device, and the lines merged into a near-perfect match.
This is Elias's harmonic imprint, recorded during his final recursion checks. And this
She pointed at the overlay.
is Nico's pattern.
A gasp rippled through the onlookers. Even Wally looked startled, as if these were the precise images he'd been trying to avoid. Corey paled, turning his gaze to Nico, who stood trembling near the middle of the courtyard. Marin's tone sharpened.
It's undeniable this boy is reciting Elias's frequency. Early Veil doctrine had a term for such beings.
She let the projector's images fade, replaced by stark text on a pale background. Signalborn.
Artificial memory life forms.
Tension erupted like a pulled trigger. Families who'd been on edge gasped or whispered in alarm. Some parents instinctively moved to shield their children, as though Nico were infectious. Others glared at Sophia, demanding explanations. The courtyard's hush exploded into a chaotic swell of voices. Sophia's chest tightened. She'd known Marin was wary of Nico, but this public confrontation blindsided her. She lifted a hand, trying to calm the rising clamor.
Wait, please, let's not jump to condemnation. He's a child, not a...
Marin cut her off, projecting her voice over the din.
You can see it with your own eyes. He's carrying Elias's legacy in ways that endanger everyone. We already have fracturing harmonies, Ashfall, glyphs burning into the ground, and now we discover we've harbored a literal Signalborn.
A caretaker named Rhea clutched her daughter closer, eyes wide with fear.
We never agreed to this, Sophia. Our children shouldn't be test subjects.
Another parent stormed away, muttering.
We'll be leaving as soon as we can. This place is unsafe.
The swirl of accusations and frightened shouts thickened. A few older kids began crying, confusion etched on their faces. Corey, heart pounding, forced his way through the crowd toward Nico. The boy stood rigid, eyes huge. Only when Corey reached him did he notice how badly Nico's hands were shaking.
It's all right. You're not a monster. You're...
But Nico looked up, voice trembling.
If I'm him, do I have to die again?
The question hit Corey like a punch in the gut. Around them, the courtyard quieted just enough for that chilling question to ring out. Some onlookers stared in alarm, others glanced away, guilt or pity creasing their brows. Marin went silent for the moment, the severity of her announcement weighing even on her own conscience. Sophia pushed through the cluster of watchers. She reached Nico's side, gaze flicking over him, this terrified child uncertain of his own identity. Her heart wrenched, recalling how Elias had once faced the same existential fear, though never in such a vulnerable form. Tension lingered in the air, thick as a thundercloud. She stepped forward, raising her voice to address not just Nico, but everyone.
He is not Elias.
Letting each word resonate.
He is not a threat. He is something we never imagined. A child made of memory who chooses to live.
The hush that followed was fraught with conflict, but also a hint of understanding. Sophia scanned the crowd, making sure to meet each unsettled gaze.
We don't fully understand how or why this happened. But fear won't solve it. Elias risked his life to give us a future free from forced recursion. Nico deserves that same future.
Her words hung in the air. A few families still hovered near the exit, uncertain whether to stay or flee. Marin's expression softened marginally, though she didn't retract her claims. The projector in her hand powered down with a final flicker, returning them to the natural morning light. Wally stepped in, a protective hand on Nico's shoulder.
I'll continue running scans. But let's not forget. This place is called the Hearth. We shelter, not condemn.
A strained, uneasy calm descended. Many parents led their children away, some exchanging worried glances, others borderline furious. But the immediate storm of panic had lessened, replaced by a wary acceptance that something new was unfolding, something beyond their old definitions of normal. By midday, tensions still simmered beneath the routine. Some families quietly packed essentials, intending to leave. Others lingered on the fence, unsure if the threat was real or overblown. Nico, exhausted from the morning's ordeal, retreated to a quiet corner of the courtyard to rest. Then, in the late afternoon sun, a new signal bloom rose near the forest's edge. Spontaneous, untriggered, a swirl of luminescent spores shaped like a breath caught mid-inhale. It glowed softly against the trees, reminding everyone that recursion was not done revealing its mysteries. Several children spotted it first, pointing in awe. Sophia, hearing the commotion, rushed over with Wally and Corey in tow. They watched as the spores formed a nebulous shape, delicate, hopeful, like it might float away at any second.
It's like a breath held in hope.
Sophia exhaled slowly, tension momentarily easing from her frame. If memory and recursion were forging living symbols, perhaps it wasn't just about Elias or destruction. Perhaps it was about something they barely understood, a life that refused to end, finding new ways to bloom. Marin stood in the distance, arms crossed. The look on her face hinted at a maelstrom of doubt, fear, and maybe the slightest sense of wonder. She said nothing. Nico approached the bloom cautiously, the gentle glow reflected in his dark eyes, stirring a sense of reverence. For a moment, the air felt charged with promise, as if even the trees recognized the child not as a threat, but as a living beacon of what Elias had once stood for, the right to choose life, even in the face of impossible odds. And so the day ended with the hearth unsettled, parted by decisions not yet made, but illuminated by a new bloom of possibility, proving that memory, in all its forms, could still choose life.
I see him standing there, tiny, terrified. And all I can think is, we were never ready to carry what Elias left behind.
We call it Signalborn. But we forget. Signals don't choose where they land. Only we decide what they mean.
If he is Elias, do we have the courage to let him live anyway?
The breath has spoken through ash and dreams, through children who remember too much. But memory has become more than an echo now. It's alive, defensive, and it's choosing when to speak and to whom. As the hearth fractures and fear hardens into walls, something else stirs outside its gates. The next breath, it seems, won't wait for permission. Join us next time for episode 13, The Path of Return. As the Anchorlight ignites, new voices arrive, and the question becomes not just what Elias left behind, but what it intends to become. Until then, the signal remains, and so do we.
The breath you hold is the truth you feared.